All right, heading into week 10 of the fantasy football playoffs, I'm giving you my starts and sits at the running back position. It's important to note we have 4 teams on bye: the Ravens, Bengals, Patriots, Jets. Lots of running backs involved there. So I know that some of you guys are going to be looking towards your depth on your bench or towards the waiver wire. I hope this video is helpful. Drop a like, comment, subscribe, and why don't you let me know in the comments below who is your most difficult start sit this week. All right, my first start of the week is Jamal Williams at the Chicago Bears. The Bears currently give up the 7th most points to fantasy running backs, and Jamal Williams has been the guy on the ground for this team. DeAndre Swift is still dealing with some injuries. We're not sure when he's going to be back to full strength. And even if he does come back to full strength in the next couple of games, it feels like Jamal Williams' role is quite safe. Last week, he had 24 rushing attempts, only had 10 fantasy points. But the week before that versus Miami, he had 10 rushing attempts for 53 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and then 3 receptions in the air. So Jamal Williams right now sitting as the running back 14 in PPR formats, going up against a very weak rush defense in Chicago. I like Jamal Williams to at least get into the end zone this week, and I think he's a safe start regardless of what Swift does. My second start of the week is David Montgomery versus the Lions. I'm going in the same exact matchups. The Lions currently give up the 8th most points to fantasy running backs. So these are both teams that are really bad against the rush. So David Montgomery, I know you could probably put Khalil Herbert in this conversation as well because he's been pretty damn good. So Monty or Herbert, whoever you have of those two, you should feel some sort of confidence starting them this week. As for David Montgomery, in the past 2 weeks, he's played 70% of the snaps. He's had 14 rushing attempts in every single game, and he's had over 15 touches in every single game. So David Montgomery, while Khalil Herbert is playing really well, I think he's still very important to this offense, who is actually resurging, and they're a very good rush offense. So I'll put David Montgomery in my lineups this week. He hasn't scored over 10 points in the past 2 weeks, but this is the matchup to do it versus the Detroit Lions. Everyone can run on the Lions. All right. My next start of the week, and I know this is going to be slightly controversial based off of what he did last week, is Tud Foreman at the Falcons, or versus the Falcons. I wasn't sure if it was home or away. Atlanta currently gives up the 12th most fantasy points to the running back position, and Tud Foreman came out last week and laid an egg. He had 7 carries for 23 yards, only had 4.1 fantasy points, but we have to keep in mind the context of that. The Bengals, I believe, were up by more than 30 points at halftime, and it was impossible for this Panthers team to establish the run. Meanwhile, Foreman's now going up against Atlanta, who last time he faced them, he put up over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, finishing with 31.8 fantasy points. So this is a very good matchup. This is a Thursday night football game, and this is a defense who has continually been giving up big points on the ground. So I like this matchup for Tud Foreman. Chuba Hubbard, I think you could, if he plays, I think you could also consider him as well, because I think that's going to be a 2-headed monster there in Carolina. But expect Tud Foreman to get back on track versus this bad Falcons defense. I would say anywhere from 10 to 15 points for Foreman this week feels very safe. We're going to stay in that same matchup, and my fourth start of the week is Cordarrelle Patterson, who plays the Panthers on Thursday Night Football. Excuse me. A lot of people were not so sure what would Cordarrelle Patterson's role be when he comes back, because Tyler Algier has played relatively well. Will they go with the young rookie, or will they start to utilize Cordarrelle Patterson again? The answer was both. And again, this team rushes on the ground more than I think any other team in the NFL, if not top 5. Cordarrelle Patterson only played 39% of the snaps, but he still saw 14 touches. I mean, what happens when he starts to get more and more healthy? I mean, he could see 50% of the snaps and still get 16 to 17 touches this week. On those 14 touches last week, he had 2 touchdowns, over 18 fantasy points. Cordarrelle Patterson is going to be a reliable fantasy option for you. And while the identity of this offense hurts pass catchers like London and Pitts, the identity of this offense drastically helps guys like Cordarrelle Patterson. So start Cordarrelle Patterson with a lot of confidence this week. The Panthers give up the 3rd most points to fantasy running backs, so it's a great matchup. All right, these last 2, I want to give you desperation starts, and they're dependent on certain things. My fifth start of the week is A.J. Brown versus the Cowboys. The Cowboys are a very, very tough matchup versus running backs. The only way you can start A.J. Dillon, if I said Brown, the only way that you can start A.J. Dillon is if Aaron Jones is not going to play this matchup. Now, we've heard that there's a chance with ankle sprains, it takes a little while for players to really get back to full strength. So watch the practice reports this week for Aaron Jones. But if Aaron Jones doesn't go, then you can start A.J. Dillon, because his role in the air will expand. Even last week, he had 4 targets. The previous 2 weeks, he only had 1 combined. So if Aaron Jones is out of this game, we anticipate the Packers coming from behind, and A.J. Dillon's going to have a good enough role through the air to be a starting option. I'm not expecting a 20-point game, but a 10-point floor feels very safe if Aaron Jones is not able to go. And with ankle sprains, it's really hard to say. All right, my last start of the week, again, another desperation start, but someone who instantly came into the offense that they were traded to and made an impact straight away. That is Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson plays the Browns at home, and Cleveland currently gives up the 5th most points to fantasy running backs. Everyone's been able to rush all over Cleveland this year. They have been atrocious on the ground. And Jeff Wilson last week came in and took 49% of the snaps. He touched the ball 12 times. He had 51 yards on the ground. He had a touchdown in the air. I mean, Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert both look like really safe starts right now. This is a good matchup for both of them. But again, I'm saying Jeff as a desperation start. I honestly think he's probably going to take over this backfield quicker than a lot of people realize. And of course, both will get work, but Jeff is going to take over that backfield here soon. All right, quickly, 3 players I do not think that you should start this week. Any Bills running back at all. It doesn't matter who the running back is. Don't start them. The Bills play the Vikings, who give up the 6th fewest points to the position. Devin Singletary hasn't had a game over 10 points in the past 2 weeks. James Cook is now getting more involved, even though they just traded for Nyheim Hines. And Nyheim Hines, who was active last week, didn't get a single touch in the entire game. So you have to anticipate that changing. It's such a weird situation in Buffalo. And I don't think there's going to be enough volume for you to rely on any one of these guys this week. My second sit of the week is Najee Harris versus the New Orleans Saints. Now look, if you need anywhere from about 7 to 10 points, you can go ahead and throw Najee out there, but he hasn't looked explosive. He's been playing with that, I believe, steel plate in his foot and still dealing with that injury, kind of playing through it. He's lost a little bit of his explosiveness. I think Jaylen Warren looks like the better running back, but this is a bad matchup. The Saints gave up the 7th fewest points to the position. They're a very stout defense. So the only way Najee Harris has a good fantasy day is if he's getting worked through the air. I'm not sure if that happens. You know, I think there are better options out there for you to start rather than Najee Harris. If you need to start him, but I'm just warning you now, it's not a good matchup and it's not in his favor. My third sit of the week is really, it's Melvin Gordon at the Titans, but I would say really any Denver running back at this point. Tennessee currently gives it the 11th fewest points to the position. But I mean, look at what Tennessee did yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever I'm recording this, to the Chiefs running backs. I know the Chiefs running backs aren't very good on the ground, but still, they are a stout defense and they're starting to figure a lot of things out. Melvin Gordon, last time he was out, scored 14 fantasy points. Latavius Murray also got into the end zone. This isn't the type of matchup that I anticipate these running backs being able to be unleashed against this defensive front. So those are the players I'm starting and the players that I'm sitting. Why don't you comment down below? Tell me your hardest start sit decision this week. Good luck. Like the video, subscribe, and we'll see you in another video very, very, very soon.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.